the agitation is actually coming from Association of Discos. And we don't have any issue with any association because we have agreement with each of the discos, not with association. So the discos have right to do the association, but we, as a matter of policy, we cannot engage the association. But it is interesting to hear this from them because if you look at the investment requirement of the discos, when we simulated based on the transmission rehabilitation expansion program, the total investment requirement of the discos is about $4.4 billion. Now, that $4.4 billion to enable them to take the load that we are trying to put under the transmission rehabilitation and expansion program. You know, according to the power pyramid, as generation is 7,000, transmission is supposed to be 14,000, and distribution is supposed to be 28,000. Now, if you look at all this time that the privatization took place, investment never go to the distribution. You know what I'm trying to talk about. So now, if the total investment requirement is $4.4 billion, if you translate it to NAIRA, you are talking about $1.3 trillion. So what is 72 billion? 72 billion is just a drop in the ocean. But the question now is, how did we arrive at the 72 billion? Did we sit down and determine their value? No. It means that we are working with discos, and it's not every disco, because that 72 billion cannot go to everybody. So it's only those willing discos that are willing to work with us that we are talking to. And those ones have provided all the required documents. That's why we are able to prepare the bidding document. If not, it's not possible. So the implementation of that 72 billion actually is cited in TCN, but we are working together with the Ministry of Power and the respective discos that are involved. But if I may ask, I think it's interesting for Nigerians to ask the Association of Discos. All the money that they have collected from the system, TCN collect only about between 30 and 40% of our revenue. The rest is kept by the discos. I think it would be interesting for them to tell Nigerians what they did with that money, instead of them to start asking. And even the 213 billion that they collected from the central bank, where did this money go? This is the question that they should answer. You know, just like I always say, TCN is the most vulnerable company in the sector. As we speak with you, the discos are collecting money and they are paying based on what they call base endeavor. They pay based on what they like to pay. The generators are being supported by the 701 payment assurance. The only company that is not protected is transmission. And that is why we have to convince our staff to use in-house capacity to stabilize the grid. So all this support that all this expansion that we are doing actually, we are getting from the support that the staff are giving, using their time to ensure that what we get from contractor, we actually get it from them. And we are getting it at a far, far cheaper price. That's why we are expanding the network. We have got support from multilateral donors, which we have reached advanced stage in the procurement of most of them. But you have to understand that multilateral donor money can only be used for the expansion of the network. It cannot be used for operation and maintenance. It cannot be used to pay salary. You can't use that money to pay salary. So that's why you see that we are in a very terrible situation. I believe last year we met NAC and we presented a case for extraordinary tariff review, and they accepted it. And we actually agreed certain numbers with them. That there are certain numbers that they are willing to offer, even though we believe that it's not adequate because they reduce our investment. Now, they said in the past we didn't make investment then, but in reality, is it our fault? When the discos didn't release the money, how do we get the money to do the investment? But now that we have worked with the donors and we have raised money, we are the only one investing in the unit, in the sector. Yet, we are asked that we should forgo that. But even the one that they agree, up to now, has not been communicated to us. The information we are hearing is that NAC is employing a regulatory asset consultant. We are waiting for them. But the reality of the matter is that TCN is the most vulnerable in the power sector as at now. I think the advert of Spinning Reserve is coming to an end on the 3rd of September. Immediately we close it, we are going to open and then do the evaluation, and then we are going to sign the contract. I believe that latest by October we should have a contract for spinning reserve signed. So we should be able to start the implementation in conjunction with NAC. So that means it will be the first time in the history of this country that we are going to have a spinning reserve of that quantum. And that will go a long way to stabilize the grid. Because the work of spinning reserve is actually to come in when there's a great instability. Like sometime around January, when we have 2 generators went out from one of the generating companies, and it caused system instability. The system collapsed. If you have a spinning reserve, the spinning reserve will have come up to stabilize the grid during that period when that generator went out. So that's the work of the spinning reserve. And it's one of the 4 things that we need to put in place to modernize and stabilize the grid. So we'll be happy, we are very happy that NAC eventually approved the competitive procurement of the spinning reserve.
Sir, can you shed more light on improvement in the power sector in terms of consumption of power supply by customers and TCN's improvement in its transmission grid?
You know, we are making a lot of improvement because we are expanding the network. But you see, whatever we are doing, the only people that are going to benefit are the 18 customers, 330 and 132 kV customers that are connected directly to the grid, and also the international customers, that is the Niger and Benin and Togo. All other customers of electricity in Nigeria, they are connected through the DISCO. And you can see investment is not entering the DISCOs. So this is the biggest challenge we have, and that is why it is interesting for TCN to see that there is investment in DISCOs. We have several transformers that we have commissioned now in several of these DISCOs that no single load is taken on them. So if you look at it, somebody can say, why are we even expanding? But the reality of the matter is that it's very, very important for us to expand because it's more difficult to fix transmission than to fix DISCO. Because transmission equipment, almost 100% are important. Distribution equipment, many of them are manufactured here in Nigeria. The right of way of transmission is wider, is sometimes up to 25 meters each side. The right of way of distribution is small. So you see that to fix a transmission is more difficult than fixing a distribution. So when we fix distribution and transmission, we can be able to fix distribution. But if you look at what this government has done since this president has come in, President Muhammad Buhari has come in, we have actually moved very significantly in terms of generation. Generation was about 3,500 when the president came in. It's now over 7,000. Transmission was about 5,000 when the president came in. It's now over 7,000. So we believe that with the right policy and step, and I believe that the government is taking the right decision on DISCO, especially now that we have this 23rd of October coming, where the performance contract between the DISCOs and the government will come to an end. Maybe they will do a better negotiation so that the privatization we have should bring investment. You remember that Manitoba was here. Manitoba was here for 4.5 years. Manitoba is a Canadian company, even though they are registered here in Nigeria. But I can tell you that what we have installed in terms of transformation capacity and line in the last 1.5 year is more than what has been done in the last 10 years. More than what has been done in the last 10 years. We have not done anything spectacular apart from motivating the staff and tell them they can do it. And also we have done a couple of training. You remember we partnered with APUA where 310 engineers were trained. We send our engineers to training in Germany. We send them in India. We're actually working with the Embassy of India and the Power Grid of India on an exchange program where we'll send our engineers to be trained there, and then they will bring their people also to train our people in-house. So this is what we are doing. We have also made Nigerians to believe that they can also do it. There's no reason they cannot do it. As we speak with you, TCN engineers are building a substation on an island in Lagos called Elashi. Everything they are doing by themselves. They are carrying roads, they are carrying chippings to the island. They carry the transformer on the sea to that place. And I can tell you that work is about 95% complete. And before I gave them the job to do, I asked for cost estimates if we are going to tender. The cost estimate were about 1 billion. So far now, the job is about 95%, and they have not collected up to 100 million. So this is what we are doing to change it's a game changer. And I believe also if the discourse are actually pragmatic and they are innovative, many of them could do the same thing, because fixing distribution transformer is easier. I can tell you there are 2 discos that has transformers bought under the NAIRA project, NAIRA project, which has been with them since 2011. They couldn't install them. They are in their stores. So if you give these people money to say they should go and buy transformer, how can they install it? Even the one that they have in their store, they cannot install it. So what we need in the industry is investment. We also need what you call innovation. For transmission, I've told you, by 2021, we are seeing the possibility of having a stable grid, because we will have implemented the 4 things that I told you we need to do. That is, we'll have installed SCADA, we'll have achieved frequency control according to the grid code, we will have achieved a spinning reserve, and we'll have completed at least significant part of the critical investment in lines and substations, which is being financed both by the federal government and by the multilateral donors. So we stabilize the grid to 20,000 megawatt, and also we'll have a system that will be devoid of system collapses. Now, for the generation, you know, the government has done a lot of work in generation. The Mambila project that you have been hearing for several years, Mambila has been closed by this government of Buhari. The Zungeru, which was started by that government, they have continued to pump money. By the grace of God, by end of next year, Zungeru is going to be completed. We have several other projects that are coming up, like Ajib. We have Black Rhino in Akwa Ibom State is also coming up, and several other small generation that are coming up. We also have to understand that the Trans-Nigerian gas pipeline that I've been talking about for several years has actually been signed by this government with a completion period of 30 months. So we are actually working with them to see a generation in place like Kano and Kaduna, which will significantly stabilize the grid, because lack of generation in those places which are load center is also a problem to the grid. And that is why there are a lot of strain on Shiroro, which is closer to those places. But if we have a generation in that place, it will stabilize the grid. So this is what I will say. We expect the power sector will significantly change. We don't believe that DISCO will continue to be the way it is. It has to change, of course. And just like the generation and transmission have moved, we expect that DISCOs are also going to move. Of course, TCN has a lot of work to do, and you know every day I prepare for every day's work. Anytime you see G. Mohammed, you see G. Mohammed plus 10 kilometers. I do a minimum of 10 kilometers every day to prepare for this work. And that is why we are not afraid of all the challenges, because we prepare every day for the challenges.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube for more information on the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN.